If you're about to buy a home, you may have thought that you've planned and budgeted everything that you need to buy the home, but have you planned for all the closing costs that are involved? So, according to the Zillow Consumer Housing Trends Report for 2024, nearly 91% of buyers incurred an unexpected cost at closing or ended up paying more for their home with the fees associated with purchasing the home than they had originally anticipated. So, let's break down these fees so that as you go to purchase your next home, you're not caught with any of these surprise costs at the end and you understand everything that's coming down the pike up front. So there's five things that we need to worry about that most buyers have, raised their hand, and Zillow surveyed all these people and they said we weren't really planning on that. And the number one thing is the loan origination fee. Over 66% of home buyers were surprised by the loan origination fee. Now, this fee covers the lender's administrative costs, and it can range anywhere between a half a percent to a full percent. It's very standard and it's attached to almost every single loan, yet at the same time, buyers weren't expecting to pay it. Now, if it's an expensive home, obviously, based on a percentage, that amount that they're going to owe at the closing table for these origination costs is going to increase. So if you weren't already planning on it, it could be several $1,000s that you weren't already budgeted for. Now, the beauty of this is that there's two things you really need to think about. One, the fee is negotiable. Number two is that you really should be shopping for lenders to get the best rate, but beyond the rate, understand the costs that are associated with that rate. Are there any hidden fees involved, like buying down points or a higher origination fee that's making up for that lower interest rate? And what's the overall cost of purchasing the home? Now, if you do shop around for lenders and you let them know that, they'll typically get pretty competitive with it. And we've seen in a lot of cases, sometimes that fee is even waived in order to gain your business. Number two goes along with the lending process, and that's appraisal costs. So nationally, an appraisal typically costs somewhere between $300 and $500, depending on the size and price of the home. Now, in the Philadelphia market and the suburbs around Philadelphia, we've actually seen in 2024, in the second half of the year, a lot of some of these fees rise, and appraisals are one of them, where we're seeing a lot of appraisals on the average price home come in somewhere around the $600 to $650 range. Now, it's standard that an appraisal is required for any bank loan. However, either buyers don't know what it is or they don't understand the costs associated with it. The reason why it's required is because a professional and licensed appraiser is going to go out to your house that you're purchasing and suggest the value of the house and make sure that the loan can cover the value of the house. If your offer price is over the value of the house, then the mortgage isn't going to cover it, and you can't mortgage more than 100% of the home. And so you'll have to kind of negotiate from there. But in order to get that professional opinion, there's obviously a fee associated with it because we now have a third party involved. And there really isn't any negotiating on this. It's typically a flat fee. And there's really no way around it either because your bank's not going to give you the loan without the correct appraisal. Number three are title transfer taxes. So across the country, most, if not all states, require and charge a transfer tax. In the state of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania charges a 1% tax to both sides of the party. So on each transaction, technically there's 2% total tax charged. Now, one party is responsible for one, so the buyer's responsible for 1%, the seller's responsible for 1%. There is a way to negotiate within our agreement of sale in Pennsylvania where one side would take care of both sides of it. Now that we're in a seller's market right now, typically it's a negotiation tactic for the buyers, but at a minimum it's 2%. Now, select counties and cities can charge additional transfer taxes in addition to Pennsylvania's transfer tax, so you also have to understand where you're purchasing in the home and understand the costs associated up front. Did the county or district or city that you're purchasing in change the amount of money that you're going to be required for the transfer tax? In Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia particularly, the transfer tax is significantly higher than a normal transfer tax in the state of Pennsylvania, and you'll typically see transfer tax over 2% charged to each side. Number four is title insurance and search fees. So, in the state of Pennsylvania, particularly, we are a title company. So, with that, there's a lot of things that go along with the conveyancing of a house. And a big part of it is something called a title search, where they'll go through all of the public records and all the records associated with the house and make sure that there's no liens against the house or any other sort of issues. Now, that's the title search. There's also title insurance to ensure that there's no issues leading up to closing. And in Pennsylvania, there's something called enhanced title insurance that will also cover you past the closing date of the house and through your ownership. Again, a lot of buyers aren't fully aware of it. And we've actually seen numbers as high as 42%, according to Zillow, that weren't prepared to purchase title insurance or understand what title insurance and their title costs were. Number five is just closing costs being higher than expected. So again, 42% of buyers said that they were not expecting closing costs to be as high as expected, didn't even understand that closing costs existed, because if you think about it, people say, you need 10% down, 20% down, and that's what they've saved for the house, and don't realize there's additional closing costs and all these other fees associated with purchasing the house. In Pennsylvania, again, typically in our counties, in the Delaware, Chester, Montgomery County, all the suburbs of Philadelphia, and then Philadelphia itself, if you include all these things and wrap them all into closing costs, you're probably going to be paying about 6 to 7% of the home price in order to close on the home. So in addition to your down payment, you'll also have the closing costs at 6 to 7%. So if you're putting down a full 20% on the house or more, you're still going to owe 6 to 7% on top of that. It doesn't include your down payment and doesn't go towards the value of your home. So how do you avoid these fees and surprises? Well, there's a few things. Number one is ask questions early. So if you're working with a credible and excellent real estate agent, they should be providing you with at least estimates of everything up front, pulling numbers from public records so you understand what taxes are associated with each school district, pulling up and letting you understand how the transfer tax will affect it, and then making sure that there's accurate numbers as to what an appraisal is going to cost, what the title insurance is going to cost. There's also other things like notary fees and lender fees, tax certifications and conveyancing fees that are also charged and paid to third parties in order to make all this happen for you, because you probably aren't going to be able to go out there and do it yourself. And if you try to, you'd probably get a headache pretty quickly. The other thing is get multiple quotes. So make sure you shop around for some of this stuff, particularly lenders. Like, don't just accept that, the rate that you get from one bank and the amount that they pre-approve you for is what it is. We often find that people will go to one bank and then go to another, and they get a completely different rate with completely different fees. But beyond just the rate, don't just focus on the rate that's being quoted to you along with the overall pre-approval point, because that's typically the number that buyers are excited to see. Really ask them to break it down and understand what fees are associated with it. And then prior to putting an offer in on a home, make sure you get a cost estimate, not just from your agent, because again, that's just going to be an estimate, but also make sure you get one from the lender so you can see how their fees changed, if at all, depending on which house you're interested in and the area that it's located in. And the last thing is plan for flexibility. There are always surprise costs in purchasing a home, and we call it the joys of home ownership, except they start a little bit early in the purchase process. Something's always going to pop up, and you need to be ready for it. So make sure when you're budgeting your house that you have a little bit of a buffer zone in order to make sure that your closing process can be smooth and you're not going to sweat this out. Now, buying a home is obviously one of the most largest financial commitments you're ever going to make. And, nobody likes surprises, especially expensive ones. But by understanding the common hidden costs that are involved, and they really shouldn't be hidden if you're asking the right questions early on and working with professionals that keep you informed throughout the way, you won't have to worry about any of these last minute expenses popping up, and you'll understand how to purchase the home correctly with the right people involved and make sure that you're spending the money that you planned on spending. So If you have any issues, or if you're out there and you're just starting your home search process and you're curious as to, how all these numbers would shake out for you, please get in contact with me. Not only can I provide you with, accurate numbers, but I can also get you in contact with some great vendors in the area in terms of title insurance and in terms of lenders that are going to give you accurate numbers and not, charge you any hidden fees. So you understand what it is up front, and they'll be willing to negotiate with you in order to create the best circumstances and help you with your financial goals. So I greatly appreciate your time today. If there's anybody that needs help with this, please share it with them. And I hope you have a wonderful day.